My wife lied about her debt while I paid off her student loans, so I sold everything and walked away, leaving her life in ruins. I'm a 31-year-old guy, and for most of my adult life, I believed love meant building a foundation together, brick by brick. Sacrifice, loyalty, patience, those weren't just values to me. They were the blueprint I followed blindly. When I married Rachel, my college sweetheart, I thought I hit the jackpot. She was bright, ambitious, full of big dreams. I was practical and grounded, as the one who kept our little apartment running while she pushed through med school, while she studied for exams. I picked up extra shifts. I learned how to meal prep, did our taxes, fixed things around the house. When she cried over tuition bills, I told her not to worry, I'd handle it. And I did. Over 3 years, I quietly paid off nearly $68,000 of her student loans. No lavish vacations, no new car for me, just the quiet satisfaction of knowing we were climbing the ladder together, one rung at a time. I never asked her to contribute much financially, believed that supporting her dreams was part of loving her. She'd always say, "Once I'm out of debt, we'll really start fresh." Total transparency, joint future, no secrets. I held on to that. It felt like a promise, like she saw me as her partner, her safety net. We kept everything simple. A joint account for bills, some savings, and what I thought was mutual trust. But over time, something started to shift. She became guarded whenever money came up, brushing off simple questions like, "Did you make the rent transfer?" Or "Did you use the card for groceries?" I didn't think much of it at first, maybe she was just stressed. But the way her voice tightened, the way she'd change the subject or act insulted when I brought up finances, it felt like something was moving beneath the surface, something I wasn't supposed to see at first. I chalked it all up to nerves. Maybe Rachel just didn't want to talk about money because it reminded her of the debt she'd carried for so long. But then came the night I noticed something strange. She was whispering on the phone in the bathroom, door locked at nearly midnight. When I gently asked who she was talking to, she said it was her mom, who'd had a migraine. Except her mom texted me the next morning, cheerfully asking when we were coming over next weekend. No mention of a migraine. I felt stupid for even second-guessing her. But the next day, I saw a receipt from a company I'd never heard of $926.52, marked minimum payment. I thought maybe she used the wrong card. So I asked casually, "Hey, what was this for?" Rachel froze. Then she smiled too quickly and said, "Oh, that. Just a mix-up from an old subscription thing. I already handled it." But her hands were shaking as she put the receipt in her purse. That night I couldn't stop thinking about it. I stared at the ceiling for hours, heart pounding, trying to convince myself it was nothing. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I was being paranoid. I'd never been the jealous or controlling type, and I didn't want to start now. Still, something felt off, like I was missing a page in a book I thought I knew by heart. Our shared bank accounts started looking thinner each month, but she swore she was contributing the same. And I believed her because I wanted to believe in us. I needed to believe the foundation we built together was still solid. But then she told me not to micromanage her spending. That word micromanage landed in my gut like a warning shot. It wasn't until I came home early from work one Thursday that I saw the envelope. It was propped against the door, marked "Final Notice" in bold red letters, addressed to Rachel. I wasn't the kind of husband who opened her mally respected boundaries, but something about the way it was jammed half open, with part of the contents sticking out, made my stomach twist. I picked it up just to set it aside, but the words caught my eye before I could even help myself. Outstanding balance. $18,342.71. I waited until dinner to bring it up. Rachel barely blinked. "Oh, that? It's old," she said too quickly. "From before we met? I've been working on paying it off." Asked her why she never told me about it when we were merging finances. She scoffed and said, "Because it's my problem, not yours." I didn't think it mattered. I sat there stunned, gripping the edge of the table. "It does matter," I said, trying to stay calm. "We've been operating like we're debt-free. I paid off your loans. We've been budgeting off that assumption. She got defensive fast, accusing me of interrogating her, saying I was making a big deal out of something I clearly had under control. But it wasn't under control. I saw the minimum payment over $900 a month. That wasn't nothing. I couldn't sleep that night. My thoughts raced. I kept wondering what else she hadn't told me. How long had she been making these payments in secret? How many more envelopes had I not seen? I didn't want to become the kind of person who snoops through their spouse's things. But suddenly, I wasn't sure I even knew who I was married to. A week later, I cracked. I logged into our bank's online portal and clicked around, aimlessly, till I saw a linked account I didn't recognize. It wasn't our joint account. It was a second checking account, in her name only, quietly active for months. The balance was low, but the transaction history was like a punch to the chest. $1,000 withdrawals. Purchases from high-end boutiques, payments to online gambling sites I didn't even know she visited. And then one line item stood out in neon to me: luxury spa membership, $650. I remember just staring at the screen. We had talked about delaying our anniversary trip to save money. She'd cried about needing time to get back on track. And here she was, burning through thousands, lying through her teeth, and hiding it behind smiles and guilt trips. When I confronted her that night, she didn't even flinch. You went through my stuff? She snapped. No apology. No remorse. Just rage. Do you have any idea how violated I feel right now? I stood there, jaw clenched, holding printouts of her transactions like they were evidence in a trial. I paid off every dime of your student debt, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. You told me we were starting fresh. She folded her arms. I never asked you to. That was your choice. It was the coldest thing anyone's ever said to me. She painted herself as the victim, claimed she had a shopping addiction, said she was coping. Coping with what? I asked. She didn't answer. Just stormed off and slammed the door. That night, I sat alone in the living room, staring at the walls we'd painted together, and for the first time, I started wondering if the woman I married ever actually existed. I couldn't get past the silence in our house. Rachel went about her days like nothing had happened, like the truth hadn't just cracked the floor beneath us. Every conversation was clipped, every glance filled with silent accusation, as if I was the one who'd betrayed her. But I wasn't done uncovering the truth. If she was hiding one account, who's to say there weren't more? One night, when she was out with a friend, another self-care night as she called it, I did something I never thought I'd do. I pulled her credit report. I justified it to myself with every click. I needed to know what I was up against. What I found shattered whatever illusions I still had. Rachel didn't. $18,000. She owed over $75,000. Spread across 5 credit cards to personal loans, and a payday advance I didn't even know she qualified for. Some accounts had been opened as recently as 3 months ago. She'd been lying about her debt the entire time we'd been together. Even during the years I thought I was helping her get debt-free, she was secretly racking up new balances faster than I could pay them down. I sat there staring at the screen. Breath shallow, hands trembling. This wasn't financial irresponsibility anymore. This was deliberate, calculated deception. She'd let me drain my savings, skip vacations, work overtime, while she lived like nothing mattered. The worst part? She let me believe I'd fix something. When she walked in that night, smiling like nothing was wrong, I felt sick. I asked her quietly, is there anything else I should know? She just raised an eyebrow and said, why? You going to run a background check on me next? And right then, I knew this wasn't someone who was sorry. This was someone who was playing me. I thought maybe, just maybe, a professional could fix what I couldn't. I suggested we go to marriage counseling. Rachel rolled her eyes, said it was dramatic, but after a long, drawn-out silence between us, she finally agreed. I told myself if she was willing to show up, maybe there was still a version of her that cared about this marriage. About me. Our first session was tense. Rachel dominated the conversation with a calm, almost performative sadness. He doesn't trust me, she said, sighing, as if I was the one hiding a mountain of lies behind a mask of innocence. When the counselor asked why I'd pulled her credit report, I laid it all out. Every detail, every statement, every dollar. Rachel's face didn't twitch, and then she said something I'll never forget. I never wanted to feel controlled by a man who thought money made him better than me. Her voice was cold, practiced. She admitted she kept a separate account. Just in case, an exit plan, she called it. She said it like it was smart, even empowering. Not once did she acknowledge how much I had sacrificed to support her. Not the debt I paid. Not the long nights. Not the years I poured into a future I thought we were building together. Even the student loans I paid. She looked me straight in the eye and said, "My parents offered to pay them. I just wanted to see if you would." My hands went numb. I felt like the walls of the room were closing in on me. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about intent, about who she really was behind the sweet girl I thought I knew that night. I didn't sleep in our bed. I slept on the couch, heartbroken and humiliated, realizing I'd married a stranger in disguise. A few weeks passed. We barely spoke unless the counselor made us. I kept my distance, quietly making plans, unsure of what I even wanted anymore. But then came the final blow, the moment everything inside me snapped. I got a call from a loan company I'd never heard of. The woman on the line was polite at first, but firm. "We're calling to follow up on your $15,000 personal loan," she said. I told her there must be a mistake. I'd never applied for anything. She read off my full name, date of birth, and even the last 4 digits of my social. I felt the blood drain from my face. After some back and forth, it hit me like a sledgehammer. Rachel had opened a loan in my name. She had stolen my identity, her own husband's, and used it to fund God knows. The company emailed me the application. The signature was mine, but I didn't write it. The address was ours. The employer was mine. She had faked the whole thing. I confronted her in the kitchen that night, holding the papers in my shaking hands. "What the hell is this, Rachel?" I asked, my voice low but quivering. She looked at me like I was the one overreacting. "I just needed some breathing room," she said, unfazed. "I would have paid it off before you even noticed." My vision blurred. I didn't recognize the woman in front of me anymore. She wasn't apologetic. She wasn't scared. She was entitled. She called me dramatic when I told her I might press charges. "It's just money," she said, as if she hadn't set fire to my name, my credit, my trust. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood there, shattered and silent, realizing I had nothing left to lose. Stopped waiting for her to change. Something hardened inside me the moment I realized she wasn't just careless, she was dangerous. She had taken my loyalty, my name, my future, and treated it like a personal credit line. So I did what I never imagined I'd do. I started planning my exit. Quietly, carefully, with the same precision I used to manage her student loan payments. Only this time, it wasn't for us, it was to get me out. The first thing I did was meet with a lawyer. I explained everything, every receipt, every forged signature, every lie. He didn't blink. He said it was one of the worst financial betrayal cases he'd seen in a marriage that wasn't already in court. We moved fast. Turns out, since the house was in my name purchased before our marriage, I had every right to sell it. So I did. Privately through a direct buyer. No listings, no signs. Just a quiet transfer of ownership. Then I pulled all my money from our joint account, what was left of it. I sold my car, closed my credit cards, froze any new lines from being opened in my name. I packed the essentials, transferred my job to another city, and waited. I didn't tell my parents. Didn't tell my friends. I didn't want anyone trying to talk me out of it. Rachel left for another one of her solo retreats. That weekend, some overpriced resort she said she needed for mental clarity. That was my window. I left the house empty. No note on the kitchen table, no trail of clues, except for one folder I left on the bed. Inside were copies of her credit reports, bank statements, forged applications, and a signed notice. "I'm done." You can lie to yourself now. I won't. Then I walked out the door and never looked back, and for the first time in years, the silence felt like freedom. I stayed gone. No calls, no texts, no forwarding address. I turned off everything that connected me to that old life, changed my number. Deleted shared cloud accounts, even got a new bank. For the first time in years, I could breathe without bracing for the next emotional ambush. But it didn't take long for the fallout to begin. She came home to nothing. The house was empty, legally sold, the locks changed. The joint account she used as her safety net? Zeroed. Her name was never on the title, never on the deeds. Everything she had relied on, my income, my stability, my blind trust, was gone in a puff of smoke. I heard from a mutual friend that she had a full-blown meltdown when she came back. Screamed at the neighbors. Called my parents, demanding answers. None of them knew anything. The luxury lifestyle she was drowning in? It collapsed almost instantly. She defaulted on multiple cards. Her spa membership got canceled. The rental storage unit where she stashed her hoarded shopping bags and unopened gadgets was auctioned off. Her credit tanked. She had to move back in with her parents, who were not happy to learn she'd forged a loan using my name. I never gloated. I didn't post about it. I didn't send her angry messages. I just vanished. Let the consequences speak louder than I ever could. There was nothing left to say. What stunned me wasn't how fast her world fell apart. It was how fragile it always was. Built on lies, maxed out cards, fake smiles, and borrowed identities. I had been the scaffolding holding up the illusion. And once I removed myself, all that was left was rubble and a woman who finally had to face the mess she made. It took her 4 months to find me. I moved to a quiet city 2 states away. Started over with a modest apartment and a job transfer that felt like hitting reset on my entire life. One evening after work, I was walking to my car when I saw Rachel standing at the edge of the lot like some ghost torn out of the past. Her hair was messy, makeup smudged, but her eyes, they were burning. You think you can just vanish? She shouted, storming toward me. I didn't respond. I unlocked my car slowly, watching her unravel in real time. She launched into a tirade, how I humiliated her, how she was on the brink because of me, how I took everything. When she paused to breathe, I handed her a manila folder. Everything you did, I said calmly, is in here. The debt. The forged loan. The accounts I didn't even know existed. She flipped it open, and for the first time in our entire relationship, she was silent. I told her, you didn't just break trust. You made me collateral in a life I never agreed to finance. I wasn't your husband, I was your insurance policy. She opened her mouth to say something, but no words came out. Just a broken little gasp like a balloon finally deflating. I'm not here to fight, I added. I'm here to give you what you always wanted, freedom. No more judgment. No more control. Just you. And everything you built without me. Her lip quivered. So that's it? I nodded. That's it. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stood there in the wind, clutching a folder full of receipts and realizing, maybe for the first time, that this story wasn't going to end with me fixing it. Starting over wasn't easy. I slept on an air mattress for the first few weeks, surrounded by cardboard boxes and silence, but that silence was different now. It wasn't tense or filled with resentment or held breaths. It was clean. It was mine. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for a storm to hit. I wasn't budgeting around someone else's secrets. I wasn't walking on eggshells or checking bank statements like they held clues to betrayal. I joined a support group for spouses of financial abuse survivors. It felt weird at first, hearing that term abuse. I had never thought of it like that. But when I spoke, when I told my story and saw the tears in strangers' eyes, I knew I wasn't alone. The manipulation, the gaslighting, the emotional blackmail, it was all textbook. I had just been too deep in it to see. Work became my anchor. I took on small projects, helped a local nonprofit with budgeting, even started writing anonymously about my story online. It felt good to be useful again. Not in a way that drained me, but in a way that rebuilt me. Eventually, Started dating again. Slowly, carefully, no rushing. I was honest from the beginning. No more facades. No more illusions of perfect partnership. I told one woman on our third date I gave everything to someone who didn't even flinch when she forged my name. She didn't run. She said, "Then I hope someday you give something to someone who earns it." That line stuck with me because I'd finally realized something. Love isn't sacrifice. When it's one-sided, love. Isn't loyalty when it's manipulated? Love should never feel like drowning. While the other person floats, I'm a 31-year-old guy, and walking away from my marriage was the hardest thing I've ever done, but also the most necessary. People talk about love like it's supposed to hurt sometimes, like pain means passion, like sacrifice is some kind of proof. But when all you do is give and the other person just takes without remorse, without gratitude, without even acknowledgement, that's not love. That's slow-motion destruction. And I lived inside that collapse for far too long. There are still days when the memories catch me off guard. A song we used to play in the kitchen. The smell of a specific shampoo. But those moments don't ache the way they used to. They remind me of the man I was, the man who thought loyalty meant tolerating betrayal and silence. That man is gone. Now, I look in the mirror and see someone I actually respect. Not because I survived what she did, but because I chose to stop it. I chose to walk out of the fire, even if it meant starting from ashes. And I did start from ashes financially, emotionally, even spiritually. But brick by brick, I built something stronger. I don't hate Rachel. I don't wish her harm. If anything, I hope she eventually looks in the mirror and sees the damage she caused, not just to me, but to herself. Maybe then she'll change. Maybe not. It's not my burden anymore. My burden now is learning how to love again without fear. How to trust again without blind faith. How to give without losing myself in the process. And one day, if I love someone again, it'll be as a whole man, not as someone trying to prove he's enough for someone who never saw his worth.